independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Australia. And it is Tuesday night, so it is time for my weekly online class to go. So for anyone who is new to my Facebook page or my YouTube channel, welcome. Each week on Tuesday nights I do a live class. We do 3 cards each week using a featured stamp set or bundle. And for anyone who places an order of $75 or more in my online store, and that's before shipping and after any Stampin' Rewards redemption, by the end of Saturday night, I will send you the kits to make 2 each of the 3 cards from this week's class. So you'll get all the cardstock, designer series paper, any ribbon, any die cuts or punches that are not part of the featured bundle are included. Any die cuts that are part of the featured bundle, I'll give you the cardstock or designer series paper, depending on what's used, but you'll need to do the die cutting yourself. And that just means that if you are using a different bundle, so if you haven't got the same one but you've got something similar, you're using that, then you can die cut and stamp the appropriate shapes rather than having a die cut that doesn't work with the stamps that you've got. So this week's class is the Cutest Crew bundle. So if you don't have this one and it's been on your wish list, I would recommend getting it as soon as you can. This one has gone out of stock a few times. It comes back and then, because it's been very popular, it goes and then it comes back and then it goes. I was very lucky. I managed to just be placing an order at the time that it had just come back into stock. It went back out of stock not long after. So if this is one that you want, make sure you grab it. All right, I will switch my camera around and show you this week's projects. There we go. Alrighty, so these are the 3 projects for this week. So I've used each of the 3 main images. So this is the stamp set. So you've got, so the 3 main ones are the birds, the dogs and the cats, and then you've got a bunch of sentiments and additional images to go with it. And then the die cuts, you've actually got quite a lot of die cuts. It's quite versatile, this one. So you have the die cuts that cut out the stamped images as a whole, but then you've also got, you can die cut the individual images. So without the stamping, you can just die cut each one. And then you've also got the butterflies and flowers, the paw prints and the little border one as well. So you got quite a lot that you can work with there. Alrighty, I'll just get this a bit more organized because things are going to tip everywhere. There we go. All right, we'll start with this one first. Hi Renee, how are you? Nice to see you. And let me just bring this one back in so that we've got it in front. So this one I've used Darling Duckling, so one of the in colors, so the 2025 to 2027 in colors. The paper for this one, I've used the Painted Illusions, which is one of the product of the month papers, and this cardstock, this is Golden Glow, which is one of the new in colors. And then we've got the Everyday Arches dies. So let's get this one down. Alrighty. Okay. And then this will just go down on the card front as normal. And we get that one down, and then we will do the stamping on the arch before we adhere this one down. So the sentiment at the top, we're just going to use Memento Black. So that will go up towards the top. And then, now, so I'm not gonna stick this down yet, but the ribbon is going to sit, ideally I want it to sit sort of just up from the bottom there, so I want to make sure that the stamped image is high enough. I don't want to stamp the ribbon, obviously, I just want to get it roughly lined up, just so it's not too low down. Some people are really good at eyeballing this sort of thing. I tend to mess it up. Let's just double check. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. And then we will color, so we will add a little bit of, just going to add a bit of granny apple green along the bottom, and this one definitely doesn't need to be particularly neat or fancy, just add a bit of green along the bottom, and we'll go across to the dotted edge. And you can go further down, particularly if you're, depending on where you've stamped it, if the ribbon isn't going to sort of line up nicely, just adjust either the ribbon or the colouring. Either is fine. That will probably be plenty. And then to colour, I have used a mix, so I've got, not those ones, that's for the next one. So I've used the Crisp Cantaloupe, which is one of the new ink colours, Barely Blush, which is one of the ink colours, and Golden Glow. Just make sure I've got the right ones, so I'm not mixing the wrong ones together. But and you can use whatever you've got for these. I have, across the 3 cards, I have used quite a few different blends, but just use what you've got. You don't have to have any of the colours specifically that I've got. Just use what you've got, whatever works with whatever paper you're using, or, as in my case, whatever happens to be sitting in front of you at the time. That's that one, and then we've got Barely Blush. Barely Blush is a very light pink. The blend's not so bad, but the ink, you may find if you're stamping with the Barely Blush ink, you may want to stamp twice, because it's very pale. But the blends are not quite so bad, so you've got enough colour, and it's good when you want something that's quite light, but not so light that you can't see it. All right, that should be enough for that one. And then the last one. And if you haven't got many blends, you could always just use the one or the one set and just do different shading. So go one really light, one sort of in the middle, and then one a bit darker. And then we'll use a bit of Darling Duckling for the beaks. And that is it for that one. Before I stick it down, I'm just going to double check and see if I need to add. I'll add a tiny bit more once I find my triangle. Just add a little bit more just along this end. Just want to avoid a white gap. That should be plenty. Alright, so we can stick these together. And then I will grab my tear and tape so we can. So this is some of the Darling Duckling ribbon. It is on last chance list. Oh, wrong side. There we go. Okay. Oops. Kind of want the tape to stay. There we go. So I'm going to line that up. And if you find you do have any gaps, you can just add some more colour to join up with the ribbon, but looking good so far. And this one in the middle. And you just want to press fairly firmly around the bottom, around where the ribbon is, just because you've got that extra layer, that extra thickness down the bottom, so you just want to make sure it sticks nicely. And you can always chuck a block on top if you need to hold it down for a bit longer if it decides it's not sticking as well as you would like. Just hold it down. And then, so the butterflies from this set, if you have any, I do recommend using the adhesive sheets. I think I ended up with a few bits a few that had bits of, because I was mostly using up scrap pieces, so I had some that had bits of adhesive sheet, some that didn't. So it's a bit of a mix. So I'm going, how many did I go with? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'm going with 5. So we will go with so I've used a mix of colours. So I've got Strawberry Slush, Timid Tiger, and Golden Glow for that one. But yeah, again, as with the blends, use whatever you've got. This particular one is really good for just using up all your scrap pieces because they're quite small, so it's very, very handy. So this first one does have adhesive sheet on the back. Sadly, that is the only one, but if you don't have adhesive sheets, then take your pick tool, particularly for the smaller ones, to pick them up and add the glue. It is much, much easier, especially the really tiny ones. Trying to pick those ones up in your hands it's not going to go well. That's why we have, this needs to be tightened a bit. Hi Dimity, how are you? I'm sorry Renee, I just realized I didn't reply properly to you. I'm good. I may have gone back on my I'm done with studying, I'm not doing any more studying claim that I made a while ago. Well, when I finished my last one. Alright, this is actually a new bottle of glue. I also don't want to squeeze too hard because it is because these are quite small, and as I don't have the adhesive sheets on this, I don't want to overdo the glue. I should probably get my silicone sheet out. That would probably make it, well, this one has a partial adhesive sheet. It's probably not much on there, but we'll just add, a bit more. Alright, that one is going to go down there. Probably should have moved that one over there, but oh well. Why were you worried, Dimity? Ooh, which reminds me, I have your ribbon share ready to send to you. It is on my desk to post tomorrow. Oops, wrong way. Let's get the adhesive on the back of this one, not the front. Alrighty, then all that is left for this one, apart from the insert, let's do the insert now, although I think my seal is about to run out. that was just about it. I might just get this one done. Yes, that will probably have to add a new one for the next one. Alright, so I'm just using the 2025 to 2027 in colour flat pearls for this one. So just using some of the Darling Duckling ones. Nice and easy for that one. And there we go. That is the first one done. Alrighty, next one. Bring that in. So this one is Timid Tiger for the base. And then I have some of the Splash of Sparkles DSP and Stylish Shapes, not Stylish Shapes, Spotlight on Nature dies. Some more of the little butterflies, we'll get those out later. So let's, and that is Crisp Cantaloupe, which is one of the new in colors. So let's, actually this one, that's right, this one I've done strips, and then we have some of the ribbon to add. Oh yes, daylight saving has finished. It now gets very dark very early. So we are back on Australian Eastern Standard Time. Alright, so we just want a slight border in between. I think that's pretty good, I think. Yes, Dimity, this has been a very popular set. It has gone out of stock, not just here, but in US, Canada, everywhere. Just went out of stock very, very quickly initially, then it came back. It wasn't very long before it was out of stock again. It has been super, super popular, and it is very cute, so I can't say I'm surprised. I don't think there have been many that have gone out of stock so many times and so quickly. Lots of stuff goes out of stock once, but then it comes back and it's usually fine. But this one, I don't think they're expecting quite the demand that they've had for this one, which is good. It's a very cute set. I was lucky that I happened to be, I had missed it with, I had it in my cart, and then by the time I placed the order it had gone, and the next time I was placing an order I sort of remembered and just, I checked right at the last minute, because it was one of those sort of last minute, oh I should check that, and it happened to be available, so I'm like, right, I'm getting it now, and I'm glad I did, because it was probably only a few days before it went again. It's like, okay, I'm glad I got that. Alright, so Timid Tiger ribbon across the bottom for this one. So this one is also Last Chance List, the ribbon. Probably should have got a big piece there, but that's all right. We'll work with that. Take this bit off. Add a bit more. Just put that back on. Grab some more. And before I forget, for those who are on my email list, so my weekly newsletter comes out tomorrow, and that will have the link to register for the online global retreat. So that will be back this July. So registrations, early bird registrations are open, so the link will be in the email tomorrow. And if you're not on my email list, you can just head over to handmadeafterdark.com.au and register there. So you'll get all the details in the email. And so for those in Australia, the dates officially are the 9th to the 11th. The 10th and 11th are essentially the live crafting days, but given the time zone differences in Australia, it is most likely, we haven't finalised the exact times of the live sessions yet, but most likely the live sessions the crafting sessions will be on the Saturday, and then we've always got the kick-off and wrap-up parties as well, before and after. But obviously everything is recorded. You can watch the replay at any time for any of the sessions. All right, colouring for this one. So I've used I've only used a handful for this one. It's the next one I've used quite a few more, but again, use what you've got. I have gone with not that one. I went with let me just double check. Where is that? That's right. Grey granite. And I have them all, I pulled them all out before. They're just in a big pile because there are quite a few used overall. Grey granite, there we go. And then I've actually used, so for this one, originally, and I'm going to use it tonight, I used peach pie, which is now retired, but you can use any sort of orangey-ish one, or you can go with a completely different color. So that is peach pie. You could also use timid tiger, pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie will be a lot darker. I also did one, which is this one. So for this one, I used crisp cantaloupe instead, just to see how it compared. So I'm going to use the peach pie tonight, but use what you've got, and you may find that mixing a couple of different ones, depending on what you've got. So if you've got pumpkin pie and timid tiger, maybe those, the light pumpkin pie plus timid tiger, maybe that might work. Just experiment, see what you like depending on what you want, or you may want to go with something completely different. I happen to have the peach pie in front of me at the time I was putting this together, so I grabbed it and went with it, and decided that I was happy with how it turned out, so that's what I went with. Doesn't mean you have to use the same colours. Use what you've got and what you like. So I'm going to do all of these peach pie ones first. And if you use something and you find it ends up being a little darker than you want, use your color lifter to lighten it, which I've actually done in the next card. I decided that I didn't quite have the color I wanted. I wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted, but didn't quite have what I wanted, so I went with the closest that I had and then used the color lifter to lighten it, and that works fine. So color lifter isn't just for fixing up, stray marks outside the lines. You can also use it to lighten the colors as well. So if you're using, say, pumpkin pie, but it's because that's what you've got, but it's a bit darker than what you want, start with it, keep it as light as you can, but start with that and then bring in the color lifter and lighten it until it's closer to what you want. Just give it time to work. Don't sit there coloring over it until it becomes as light as you want. Go over it, the area that you want, leave it and come back to it. See how it ends up looking. Go over it again if you need to. Again, leave it, come back to it. The color lifter is one that you won't see the end result instantly. You need to give it time to kind of settle and do its thing. All right, that's enough for those, I think. All right, so then we have the grey granite. Just check those are both grey granite. Yes, they are. Okay. I'm not going to add too much extra color to these because I don't want them too dark, so I'll just add a little more. So that'll be enough for that one, and then we'll come in on this one. And then for this one, I'm going to use strawberry slush for all of the butterflies. Just keep this one simple, stick to the one colour for the butterflies, makes it a tiny bit quicker, tiny bit. Okay, that is that. Yep, light strawberry slush. I think the light is plenty dark enough for these. Alright. And then I will do the stamping now before I forget. So I'm just using Memento Black for this one. And I want to go reasonably close. I've already, well, this one's already cut on the angle because it's the other side of one of my sample ones, and I do want to leave a bit of space at the other end to add jam, although I may need to trim this one down. Yes, I will trim this down just a little. Because I need to trim this one down so I can fit this one properly. And this one is on a, I might make this, give this one a bit more of an angle, I think. That's better. There we go. Just move all those scraps out of the way. Might as well stick this one down now before I forget and lose it. And there we go, that's all good. Put that to the side for the moment. So we will stick this one down, that's going to fit there nicely. Okay. Just make sure that's, yep, roughly halfway between the two, and then this one I'll need to trim down just a little, so I can just trim off the end there, straighten that up a little, and that should be, actually that's coming down a bit, but that should be close enough. I think that's fine. Just got to be careful with this one when adding. This is another one where adhesive sheets would have been a good idea. Although it's not it's not too bad. You've at least got some decent space in between. Just got to be careful not to add too much. It just depends how cooperative your bottle of glue is and how well things tend to stick in your climate depending on where you are. That should be enough. So coming down towards the bottom, come up a little bit. Don't need to be too far down. Slide that across a little. That looks about right. And then we'll pop this one up on top. You could pop this up on dimensionals as well if you wanted to. I'm just going to leave this one flat for this. So that is just going to sit across the middle there. And then we will pop up on dimensionals. I'm going to try and do basically as close to either side of the ribbon as I can. So it sort of make sure it's sticking on the paper and not just on the ribbon. Also means that more likely that the ribbon sort of sits in between and doesn't sort of add extra bulk. And I'm going to bring this over to the edge there, and then once I find them, we have a few, not going with as many for this one, just going with 3 of the little butterflies. I've got 1 of each size. And this is not quite sticking on there properly. There we go, that's a bit better. I might just dab it in the middle and then spread it around to the sides. It's a bit easier than trying to dab it directly on to the edges. So that's that one. This one's cooperating a bit nicer. And then final one, tiny little, oh no, that is the wrong way around. Flip that over. And pop that one down there. Now, is my Stampin' Seal going to run out this time? I think it is. Doesn't even want to. I think that last bit is just about done. Let's see how far I get. Oh, I might even get all the way through this one. Did not expect that. that down, and then I'm using a mix of gems for this one. So I've got the just one of the 2025 to 2027 in color pearls, so one of the Timid Tiger ones just over there, and then just some of the rhinestones. So we'll just grab a small number of those, and let's see. Got one there and one more somewhere over here, I think. Let's just go up there. Alrighty, and there is the second one done. Alright, one more to go. So this one is early espresso for the base. Now for this top section, which I've embossed with the Stone and Vine embossing folder, I used some of the textured, let me check the exact name of it, Natural Hues textured DSP, if you wanted to, because I wanted to use it because I quite liked the texture, but wasn't entirely convinced on the color, so I did do some ink blending. If you wanted to, you could just use crumb cake cardstock and emboss that. So I'm going to use this one, and because you can, if you look at the difference in color, this is ink blended, this is just natural, and then once I've added the ink blending, so you can see there's quite a difference in the color. So I've just used a bit of Smoky Slate. I did try, after I'd done the Smoky Slate, I did try Crumb Cake to see how that looked. Yeah, it didn't look good. Crumb Cake cardstock on its own would work fine for this, but blending Crumb Cake ink onto this particular color did not work for this particular design and color combo, so I'm going to stick with the Smoky Slate. And so for this one, I am going for both the embossed section, but also in between that as well. So I don't just want to add the color to the embossed part, I do want it all over, just to tone down that the color a bit. Plus it is the Stone and Vine embossing folder, so it kind of gives it a bit of a stone-ish look. Alrighty, that is probably plenty, I reckon, because that went a bit, yeah, although could probably still go a bit more in between. I reckon we'll just add a little more in between just to tone it down a little. Alright, that should be enough. And then, so with this one, I have used some last chance list paper. So this is the Timeless Plaid, or plaid, depending on how you prefer to say it, paper. And for this one, I have cut the pieces to be an exact fit, so no overlap. And we're going to join the, I'm going to add the ribbon over the join anyway. So just going to double check that it does actually fit and I have cut it correctly. Not the end of the world if there's a bit of difference either way, because the ribbon will cover that. But and I might put this one down the bottom just so it's that darker section, which is, I mean, it's fine, it's just a little darker than I ideally wanted. So some of that is going to be covered by the ribbon, and then the die cut image, so that will work nicely, I think. My original one of these I did, and I only had one piece of that, or enough for one piece of the Designer Series paper. I used one of the ones that had a bit of early espresso in it, so let me pull it out actually. So this one, unfortunately I only had enough to cut one of those, but I do like that because it does have the darker, well actually it's not, well there is early espresso, there's also a bit of pecan pie in there, but that was that one. And then I used these for the others, and then I am bringing in, because I wanted to add a bit of contrast and a bit of color, so I'm actually bringing in, this is the Real Red Shiny Ribbon. So this was in the well, essentially the Christmas or holiday mini catalogue, the August to December one from last year. So I've still got some of that, so I decided to use it, and I have plenty to send in kits, so no issues there. Now where's my tape gone, apart from staring me in the face? There it is, hiding underneath. Just using the blocks to hold this down because this one is getting towards the end of the roll, so it does tend to get a little extra curly. Okay, so that is going across the join there. Oops, and the tape is coming off. Not quite what I wanted. It does that sometimes. Alright, and let's stick this down onto the card base, and then we will start colouring. And so for this one with the colouring, there's a few more colours, and for anyone who is placing an order to get the kit, so you also get the PDF tutorials. Yeah, there are quite a few different colours of blends listed for this one in particular, but most of those are, you know, ones that you can use whatever, and you know, they're only used for very small images, so you absolutely do not need to have them all, and there's no reason you can't use the same one more than once for one flower or whatever. So don't freak out when you see the long list of blends in that one. You do not need to have them all, and they're mostly for very small sections. So for the dogs, I'm using, for this one, I'm using a mix of crumb cake, smoky slate. I've got to pull them all out. There's my smoky slate. Where is my other crumb cake? It's grey granite. I don't need grey granite anymore, so that can go out of the way. We do need pecan pie. There's my crumb cake and my pecan pie and my smoky slate, and that's what I've used. So I've used crumb cake twice. Just bring this back down a bit further. So these two are both crumb cake, but this one I have used the colour lifter, and this one, which is pecan pie, I have also used the colour lifter on as well to lighten it a bit. And then all the other colours are just for the flowers and the leaves and the bandanas and that sort of stuff. So no need to have any specific colours for those. You can use whatever you have. So let's start with, and we need the colour lifter, light crumb cake, dark crumb cake. So we'll start with this one. Just go over this one a couple of times just to blend in the dark a bit better, mainly because there's my light crumb cake has been used a lot more, so there's not quite so much ink in it, so it just takes a bit more to blend it in. I do have spares. I just haven't replaced it yet. It's still good. Still good. Alright, that should be about enough for that one. And then this one I will use a little bit of the dark, but not a lot. And I am going to come in with the colour lifter for this one. could probably get away with not using the dark at all for this one and just add some shading with extra layers of the light, particularly as I'm going to come back with the color lifter, so could absolutely do that, but let's just go with it. That should be enough for now. So I'm just lightly going over most of this with the color lifter. And we'll come back a bit later, see how it's looking, see if we need to lighten it a bit more or add any more color if I've gone too light in any spots. So smoky slate, that's going to be this one. Okay, could potentially add color lifter to this one a bit too if you found that the smoky slate was a bit too dark. I might add a little bit actually, just a little, don't need heaps, just lighten it a little bit in a few spots. Let's just see how that goes. And then the last one is pecan pie. We don't want too much of the dark for this because it's quite dark anyway, so we're just going to add a little bit and a little bit there. And this is another one that we're going to lighten anyway. The dark one is really just to add a little bit of contrast, although you'll get some from adding the color lifter anyway. So just blend that in a bit more. There we go. And then we can come in with the color lifter. See how we go. So this one's looking, you can see that's definitely looking lighter than that one. I'm happy with that one. I might just add a touch more there. That should be enough. Then we just need to add a few little bits of colour elsewhere. So go with what you've got and what you like. I have used quite a few different colours. Don't feel that you need to do that unless you want to. Because I have all the blends, which makes it a bit easier to use lots of different colours when I want to. But even then, I still often just use the ones that happen to be sitting in front of me at the time. Okay, I think I need one more. Yes, that one. No, two more. Although one was a colour I had already used. And I've got olive. Alrighty, I think I've got everything done. Move some of these out of the way. Alrighty, so this one I am going to pop up on dimensionals. Actually, this would have been a good one to cut out on the foam adhesive sheets, and then it's just got one big dimensional rather than having lots and lots of little ones. And I'm going to cut a couple of little strips for a couple of sections. Because I like it to sit as evenly as possible where possible. I think that is just about enough, but I have this one in my hand, so I'm just going to whack it down there. Probably don't need that one, but it was in my hand, so it's going on. And then we just have to get all the backings off. I did actually clean the floor in here the other day, or late last week I think. So the floor, briefly at least, was actually clean. I could see it. It wasn't covered in dimensional backings and scraps of paper and everything else. It's not looking too bad now, but don't know how long that is going to last. All right, so that is down. Now we can do the sentiment. So Memento Black again for this one. And we'll go towards the end because we need to punch. Just got to try and get it centered. I keep, for some reason with this one, I keep forgetting and end up way too long. But this one's not too bad. just take a tiny bit more off and also adjust it slightly. And then if you need to, just trim off any little pieces. That looks fine. And then, so let's see. I want that to sit about there, so I'm going to cut that about there. I may have cut that. Oh no, that's fine. Thought I cut it too far, but it's all good. And again, another one that ideally adhesive sheets would be ideal for this, or if you don't have any, or if you're like me and you keep forgetting, sponge dauber and silicone mat and the green glue to get the glue on quicker and less mess, and also less likely to have, you know, lots of glue squidging out the sides. So we'll get that one down, and this one is going up on dimensionals. And an extra backing has decided to come with. Let's get that back on, otherwise that one is going to end up picking up lots of bits of dust and whatnot. Alrighty, so we'll line up with the edge partway down, so it's just sort of covering part of that. There we go. And then embellishments for this one, I'm using two different ones. So we have the earthy matte dots and the faux bronze pentagons. These ones are a little heavy. It's not so bad when you've only got, you know, a few on your card, but these are ones that when you pick them up, you will notice the difference in weight. But when you split it down to, you know, a handful in your project, it's not so bad. But if you are posting, just be mindful of how many you have in total and how much weight it adds to your card. And I'm just using the small ones for this. And let's go over there for that one. Alrighty, and there is the third and final card. Alrighty, let me just bring everything back in. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. So these are the cards from this week's class. Thank you, Renee. So remember, you have until the end of Saturday night to get your orders in if you want the kits for this week's cards. Next week is, let me change my camera back and double check. I think it is Bloom Boutique Blossoms, whatever. One is the suite name, one is the bundle name, but that is essentially what we are using for next week. So that is it from me for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the projects. If you're watching on YouTube, if you enjoyed the projects, please remember to like and subscribe and get the notifications so you don't miss any of my classes. And remember, if you're not on my newsletter list already, head over to handmadeafterdark.com.au and sign up so you'll be the first to know all the details for card classes each week and any additional classes, retreats, special offers, all that sort of stuff. Alrighty, that is it for tonight. Once again, thank you for joining me.